Good evening, everyone. How are y'all doing tonight? So, my name is Brent Reedy. I am the Andrew W. Mellon Director of the Research Libraries, and it is such an honor to welcome you to another evening of Live from NYPL. Whether you are here in this beautiful room or watching us out there in TV land, thank you for making us part of your evening tonight. So, you are in for a treat. Tonight, you get to learn about the story behind the poignant and touching hour of storytelling, art, movement, and literature known as lunch dances. This was conceived and created by the incredible Monica Bill Barnes and Robbie Sands de Viteri. It was created specifically for this library, and it just is about to finish its 2-week run. If you haven't seen it, try. There's a wait list. You can try to jam yourself in. It is fantastic. The New York Times said it better than I could. They call lunch dances a piece that gives a carefully cultivated assortment of objects from the past a beating heart. They call it a humane offering about people finding connection in an unlikely place. I couldn't agree further. The piece is a beautiful testament to everything that we believe a research library is and can be. So for those who haven't seen it, not to spoil much, but the work follows a fictional library page as she delivers collections to different patrons across the library, and we move from room to room. Each patron is here for a different purpose, some personal, some academic, some romantic, but they are linked in the act of research, of looking for something. And the act of research is inherently communal. There you are in a room with dozens of other researchers. But it is, and I can tell you personally, brutally lonely. It's you with materials, thinking your thoughts, wishing the text could talk back to you. The work combines those two in a vulnerable, funny, and intimate way and reveals in each patron's case the beauty and humanity of that interior quest. So, as you will learn tonight, no doubt, this work is of itself a piece of research. Robbie and Monica spent months here. We first talked about this piece over a year ago. They interviewed staff, they shadowed patrons, they dug into boxes, they lurked around corners and tried to get into doors that were closed. The result is both artistic and scholarly, touching in its sensitivity and impressive in its scope. And no surprise, Monica and Robbie are known for creating dance where it doesn't belong. And initially, we thought that commissioning them was kind of throwing down a gauntlet. We dare you to show us how dance belongs in a quiet library where you're more likely to be shushed than to erupt into a samba. Well, now we know the answer. And it is through movement and words that we, the staff here, now understand better than ever the magic that transpires here on a daily basis. Tonight, we have one half of the creative force behind this, Robbie, with us to tell us his story of working in the library, who he met, who he saw, how it inspired him. As the chairs indicate, we also will be joined a little bit into the program by some of the performers as well to add to the conversation. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Monica Bill Barnes cannot be here tonight, but we will still be represented very well. They are speaking in conversation with Brian Schaefer, a fiction writer and journalist covering arts and culture and a longtime scholar in residence at Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, and all of you need to buy his new book when it comes out in the fall later this year. At the end of the talk, we would be happy to take a few of your questions. You should have gotten a golf pencil and a little note card when you came in. Some of my colleagues will circulate towards the end and collect those. If you are watching online, just drop the question in chat and we will add that to the mix as well. Live from NYPL is made possible by the continuing generosity of Celeste Bartos, Manaz Isbahani Bartos, and Adam Bartos. And of course, we could not do this with all of your support. So please now join me in welcoming Robbie and Brian to the stage.
We just realized that my brother's name is Brian and his brother's name is Robbie.
It's pretty special.
That is really special. Yeah, that's crazy. I just have to say very quickly, Monica is not here, which you just heard, and that is heartbreaking, I'm sure, to most of you, as it is to me. We've been working together for 10 years, and she's one of my dearest, closest friends, and she would love to be here, and she's so sorry that she can't. And I feel like what you're really missing from that is that we are both really similar and really different, and I'm sorry you can't see those two things combined right now. But yeah, she says hi to all of you. Thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. We miss Monica. We're so
Yeah.
glad you're still here.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be in conversation with you. And thank you all for joining us. Just real quick, how many of you here have seen Lunch Dances? Okay, great. Great, this is most people. And then I think about half of you have not, which is also great, which is also fine, because I
Yeah.
think the goal tonight is to, for those of you who have seen it, we're going to give you some insight, some behind the scenes. We're going to kind of understand the process of how this incredible work was built. And then for those of you who haven't experienced it, we're still going to give you a taste of it. We're going to kind of describe what the experience is like. And I think one of the special things about what it does, obviously, as Brent was saying, the way that it just makes you see the space of a library completely anew and really changes your relationship to it. And it makes you kind of reflect on being in that space and being surrounded by all that we associate with the library. And I think because it's inspiring this conversation, even if you haven't seen it, that's going to come through, is that it's going to change the way that we kind of think about this space, think about activating it, think about kind of what it does for us.
Yeah.
Great. So we're going to work our way up to Lunch Dances.
Okay.
I want to start to understand how a company comes to be that is in a position to create what Lunch Dances is. And that
Yeah.
kind of dates all the way back to Monica Bill Barnes and Company started in 1997.
Yeah.
You came on in 2013.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
behalf of Monica, can you give us any insight into how the company was born before you got there?
Yeah. So if you don't know Monica, she is a choreographer and a dancer. And I feel like she is equal parts inspired by Martha Graham as she is by Buster Keaton, which is a really strange kind of Venn diagram that not a lot of people are in. And I think she really is one of one in that regard. She studied dance with you, actually, at UCSD, and then she came to New York University, and then she started a dance company. And she would be the first person to tell you that that just meant that she danced. Like, she had a suitcase and she had costumes, and she would just say yes to whatever dance gig was possibly open to her. And I think, the first few years of founding the company are really just performing as much as she could. So yeah, she was doing that. At some point, it started to go like a lot better and started to, become more and more of her focus, and started to go really well. I'm going to jump ahead to like maybe right before we met, which is this moment in which I think she was doing a show at a very important venue, and I'm not going to name the venue because maybe that's not going to sound great when I say this, but she was doing a show at a very important dance venue, and I think it was like what they call a dance season. And I'm not from the dance world. I think that's like painfully obvious, but I'm not from the dance world at all. I'm not a dancer. I don't move I move a lot during this piece because we walk around the library, but I don't dance. So while the dance season, I didn't realize this, is like a 2 or 3 night thing. That's what a dance season often is.
Yeah, it can just be a weekend.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, so she had one of these dance seasons that she had aspired to for so long, and I think did the show on Friday night, and on Saturday came in for the next night of her dance season, and they were taking her name off the marquee. And she just felt like, this is not what I want. Like, I want to do more. And I think she started to really see that, dance doesn't sort of allow a longevity, and dance doesn't sort of encourage a kind of breadth of a career that she really wanted. So she started to really get outside of the traditional models of dance making and dance producing. And we met at that point in her life and started working together. I had never, ever worked in dance before at all. I write, and I never even thought I should perform. Like, I just thought I should write and direct shows, theater shows. But when I saw her dance for the first time, I just felt like I was watching a theater piece. Like, it's not like, she doesn't move in a way that makes me think of the body. She moves in a way that makes me think of a person, and I think we really just started to coalesce a lot of like our common interests of humor and sadness around like just the people that she often wants to inhabit on stage.
So what was your first project together, and then kind of how did you formalize that relationship and start kind of building the works that came after?
I love the idea that we formalize the relationship, but yeah, it's just been, I think in any relationship, but it is just a series of like, are we still doing this? Yes, we are still doing this for like 10 years now, and that is the formal agreement I think that we have. And then honestly, the first real conversation we had about like whether we wanted to like really make something together, I thought she was trying to fire me. Like, she's a very serious person, and that's great. But we had met because she was making a show with Ira Glass, and yes, woot woot for Ira Glass. I love that he gets a woot woot. He deserves that. And I was in a theater company called the Nature Theater of Oklahoma. No woot woot? Okay, a little woot woot. Thank you for the little woot woot. On cue, too, which is great. How you know you deserve it. And we are a really strange theater company. We made really long epic shows that were all from recordings and interviews. So the text was all sort of found text. And when Monica started working with Ira Glass, they were working with these recordings and interviews. And they knew somebody that I knew, and somehow we all got connected in a very New York-y way. And honestly, like, doing the show with him was wonderful, but it really was the start of our like friendship and our relationship because we spent so much time traveling and touring together.
I mean, that show toured for like years.
I think for 3 years and went to like 75 different cities, which yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. It's called 3 Acts, 2 Dancers, 1 Radio Host.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was our best title, but yeah.
I mean, I remembered it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's working. But yeah, so we met then, and then we started conceiving shows together. I mean, mostly just as jokes. Like, you know, I think like as show people do, like you're just sort of bored and you're like, you know, it would be great if somebody came on stage and they did this, or you know, it would be great if I wore that or something. Like it just starts as like the games that I think we all play just as people all the time. And then we made a show called Happy Hour. Which was the first show we really, I think, made together, which all took place at an office party where Monica and another female dancer dressed as these kind of schlubby business guys that then sexually harassed all the women in the audience. And because it was Monica and this other female dancer doing it, everybody loved it. But if they were really the guys doing it, of course, we would have done the show for 20 minutes and then been thrown out of the city, as we should be. But it was this hilarious send-up of male behavior by these 2 female dancers that was really upsetting in a lot of ways, but also, I think, a comedy. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, and that, I mean, that's something that I think is characteristic of a lot of your work is that,
Yeah.
this, you know, the kind of the fun and the playfulness on the surface is really masking something underneath, whether that be something as serious as sexual assault or whether that's actually some like really profound emotions that you get at aging, mortality, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at some point, the mission of the company shifted to being, or at least you kind of settled on, you know, that you're bringing dances to places where it doesn't belong. And I'm curious, kind of that thinking that led to that, to settling on that idea and that as a kind of objective and mission statement.
Yeah. I mean, in so many ways, I just felt like I think it really to us means like bringing movement to people who don't normally see movement or people who don't see themselves in movement. I think, you know, a lot of ways we're making shows essentially for each other. And I think that is the sort of nature of a collaboration. Like I am writing things that I hope Monica will laugh at and feel emotional about and see herself in. And I think she makes dances and hopes that I'm going to have a reaction to them and see something in them. And I am not a dance person at all. And I think both of us sort of want people like me in the audience and feel like it's actually our job. I mean, not to discourage dancers or people with a strong dance background to come to the work, but also for those people to see dance in a really different way, and to see it as, you know, just something that's unique in of itself. Yeah. So I don't know. I think sometimes it's a very literal mission of like literally bringing dance into a place where it doesn't belong, and we've done a ton of that. We made a show in a mall downtown called Brookfield Place. which I'm not supposed to call a mall. I'm supposed to call it like an exciting entertainment district or something like that, but it's 100% a mall. And I called it a mall, I think, a dozen times during the show. And we made a piece for the Metropolitan Museum of Art called the Museum Workout, which I think we were supposed to do maybe 15 times and then ended up extending and did 125 times or something like that. So there is the literal version of like bringing dance where it doesn't belong, but I think in so many ways it's also just about bringing people into a vocabulary of movement that don't normally see themselves that way.
And with those two experiences in particular, with the Days Go By, which was the shopping mall piece, and the museum workout, what did you learn in those process in terms of putting them together, in terms of working in non-traditional spaces, in terms of working in these immersive environments where you have passersby who have no idea what's going on? Like, how did you kind of build that muscle of being able to adapt, and what did you learn about yourselves as a company?
Yeah, I mean, Days Go By was really interesting in relation to this because it was all on headphones. So this piece that we're doing here at the Library Lunch Dances, the audience all wears headphones, and I can speak to them and we can play music directly into their headphones. And Days Go By worked the same way. It was in this mall, and the audience all sat on the staircase that overlooked the atrium, and they all wore headphones, and we had about 20 performers just hidden in plain sight in the mall. Just you couldn't pick them out unless I was telling you who they were and unless they started dancing. And I think the thing that we fell in love with in that piece that I think really we knew like we wanted to carry over to this is this weird version of like who you are privately and who you are publicly, and the private voice that you have going on all the time while your body is out navigating a public space. And I think we felt like really not done with exploring that. I mean, especially in this context, which feels just so related to reading, honestly, and to books, and the way that like a narrative can really move you in and out of a person's thoughts in a like I think in the like it's like the ultimate art form at doing that. You know, it really like taking you inside of somebody's language and experience and then zooming out within a sentence to see like who they are from the outside. And I think so much of Days Go By was trying to borrow that kind of like short story, novelistic. I mean, more short story really than novelistic. Like I think that piece existed like a series of short stories like this one does. Yeah, I mean, working at the Met, it was incredible. Like, I think the thing that really has carried over from working at the Met that surprises me so much is just how emotional that experience was. And I think we're all finding that this performance, Lunch Dances, has also been incredibly emotional in a way that we didn't necessarily anticipate. It wasn't like we set out to make something that left people in tears after every performance. That wasn't like a goal. And every time we've done the show here, I think we've done 20 shows now, and people are very moved by it. We're really happy about that, but it's also really kind of a surprise. And I think a very similar thing happened at the Met, at the museum. And I don't know, to me, I think a part of that is that these are these giant civic institutions, and we are people, and we feel really like, I think we're trying to make something that has a personal entry point into these giant sort of civic institutions and say like, this is a home for people, and art at the Met is really actually made for people in a one-on-one experience. And I think it's trying to restore some sense of human connection that I think a lot of us don't know how to feel when we come into a building like this. Like I spent time in the Rosemain Reading Room, like writing, like it was a study hall, 10, 12 years ago when I was first working in New York. But I didn't really spend time as a researcher here until we started making this. And that's what unlocked how emotional this place can actually be and the emotions it can hold. And I didn't know that until we started spending time here, really. And I didn't know that about the Met really at all until I started showing up there every day and seeing Madame X every single morning for 125 mornings or something. And felt like I just developed a different relationship to the place. And I think in so many ways we're trying to borrow the really personal relationship that people who have worked here or worked at the Met, places like that, for 30 years, and borrow that personal connection they have so naturally to a place and offer it to people who don't have that chance. Yeah.
And so tell us about how your relationship with the library began, how you connected with Brent, how this piece came about, what some of the initial conversations were, and then how you went from there to create this.
Yeah, I think Brent, I think, has been seeing our work for about 10 years. I think courtesy of his wife, maybe at first, and then maybe just you wanted to come. Yeah. Okay. Good. And we made a piece a couple of years ago that Brent saw, and I think he had just gotten the job here and said, you should come and talk to me about doing a piece at the library. And we were like, amazing. That'll never happen, but sure. And we came and he gave us this incredible tour that we saw every inch of the library and saw it through his eyes. And I will say his passion for the building and for the collection and for the people who work here was really like such an initial, like, how do we have that? How do we bring that to the audience? Because it's such a palpable passion for this place and its mission. And so we had a couple of meetings just like really practically about the library and what we would do. And I think on like the end of the third meeting, I think Brent said something like, and of course you'll make something about the collections. And we were like, yes, of course. We were definitely thinking we would make something about the collections, obviously, duh. And there's 54 million items, I think. And I don't know if that's totally right, but I say that number. But it felt like, make something about the world. And that was our first moment of like, oh no, what have we gotten into? And we've been doing this long enough that I should learn that that's a really great moment, but it does really feel terrible every time to say like, oh no, now we can't do anything because this is such a great, wonderful burden. So we both just started kind of rolling up our sleeves and doing some research. And Monica would say that her research really often included trying to break into every room in the building possible and understanding where she could dance. And I had a very different approach, which was that I'm a huge fan of the poet Frank O'Hara. And I figured the library probably has some of his material. And of course they do. And so I opened a research account and I started researching his material at the library. And I thought it would be this great literary discovery that I made. But honestly, he was it was a lot of letters, postcards, like a playbill from a dance show he saw. And he would write these like snipey comments about people and like kind of gossip about his friends and say these like things about his friends' relationships that he didn't like. It was just a lot of like stuff that we all do all the time in our circle of friends. But his circle of friends was this amazing group of artists and poets, the New York School of Poetry and the New York School of Visual Arts, like painters like Jackson Pollock and Nell Blaine and Willem de Kooning and writers like Kenneth Koch and now I'm going to forget everybody. Yeah, John Ashbery, yeah. And it's the same time as the Beat Poets, too, and they kind of had a bit of a war with the Beat Poets. So it's just like a lot of like 1960s artist sniping in these letters, which I was loving so much and enjoying so much more than like an amazing literary discovery that I thought I should have. And that started to really... I didn't understand it as I was first getting into it, but that started to inform a lot of the piece, actually.
And so how do you take a discovery like that and how do you theatricalize it? And how do you say, okay, this is what it's going to physically look like. This is the number of dances that we need. This is the emotions or the ideas or the feelings that we want to evoke in the audience.
Yeah, I had no idea, in all honesty. Like, and really just couldn't. Like, all I knew, I kind of was going on 2 tracks at one time. And all I knew is that Frank O'Hara was somebody whose work I knew really well, and I was getting more and more interested in this circle of people, and I was learning these things about this circle of people that I didn't know at all. That his friend Nell Blaine had gone through this moment in her life where she had polio and lost control of half of her body, and that Kenneth Koch, his poet friend, taught poetry to kids at Pier 61 in the East Village, and he's the only one in all the photos of them that I've ever seen who never smokes and who always has a beret on and desperately seems like he wants to look like an artist. So I was like learning these things about these people, but honestly had no idea what to do with that. Like it didn't feel necessary or like part of an alive experience. And really, like, it didn't start to make sense to me until I started spending time with the librarians and the pages here at the library, which I did in December. I met a wonderful person who works here, Kate Cordes, and she just kind of like agreed to talk to me for about 15 minutes about this thing that we were making. And I think she really didn't understand why she had agreed to talk to me for the first 15 minutes, but she was very generous to give me that time. And then we walked around the library, and she's been here, I think, a long time, working here for a long time, and knows so many people. And they just started having these very personal discussions that honestly felt so much like these letters. They were complaining about patrons, I think, as people might do. They were talking about library systems changing over. They were saying like, oh my gosh, who left this thing here? Like, it just felt like the conversations that people have at work. Like, did you know that somebody came and like did their wedding photos in the Rose yesterday? Like, it just felt like this like life, this real interior life of the library started to come through, and it felt very similar to the way that a group of friends talks to each other. And it felt like the first moment where I understood, like, oh, we could be them. We could be the pages. We could be the librarians. And then all this stuff that I was researching felt like it started to inform, like, well, what would we be doing? And it became, for me, this real sort of like fictional leap of like, if Kenneth Koch was here at the library, what would he request? If Nell Blaine was here at the library, what would she be doing? What would Frank O'Hara's friends be like looking for at the library, and what are they looking for in their lives? And those started to become like characters and stories in the piece.
And so then how do you navigate the kind of logistical complexity of putting that into a public space like the library? And I know also, same with the museum, when we were talking, when you were doing the museum workout, you would, show up one day and a wing that you were planning to dance through was all of a sudden closed for renovations, and, and so sudden pivots. And how did that play out here? And what were some of the hoops that you had to go through? And what was the diplomatic dance that you also had to do here?
Yeah. I mean, I think Monica would say this very clearly. She really doesn't like that it's different every time. I mean, and I think as a dancer, like, that's just not what you want. Like, I don't know how many dancers there are here, but I think you train every day to be able to do the same exact thing, the same exact way, the same exact moment with the person next to you, if that's what you're supposed to do, or 1 second after the person next to you, which is even harder. So variety is not of interest to her at all. And that is where we're like incredibly different. And I think like our work frames movement, which is this incredibly rehearsed, impeccably like perfected thing, in this really live way. And I think you have a feeling as an audience member that we're maybe doing this for the first time each time. And in a way that's kind of true, because the library is so vastly different each time. Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways, like, she's never gotten used to it and will never enjoy it, like, in a lot of ways, but does in a kind of grander sense. It was really funny to me the first time she started sharing choreography that she was making with the library in mind. It was really funny. So Flannery Gregg, our rehearsal director, who you'll meet in a little bit, is in the show, and Elizabeth Furman, our amazing associate producer, who is really like the first person that we share any material with, and she is the person that if she laughs, we know it's going to be funny, and if she has an emotional reaction, we trust that, and if she's silent and just sort of sits in the corner, we're like, okay, back to the drawing board for Elizabeth, which is an amazingly generous thing that she does so well. But anyway, we were sharing material with Elizabeth, and Monica was showing us these dances, and she was like, these are going to be these like contained small dances that I think we can do in these like dance in these like small spaces in the library that have a lot of furniture in them. They're going to be really small, and like you probably won't even notice that I'm dancing because it is just like so contained. And then this giant movement would like burst out of her, and she would go back to like putting her hands in her pockets and nodding and like doing these like small gestures, but it just felt like she wanted to explode in these spaces in a way that you're really not supposed to. And I love that she had the impulse to be like very polite and like really try to like be contained, like the environment is sort of encouraging you, and that she almost thought that she was doing that, but she really wasn't. And I feel like that was so much of what also just like really kind of this well of emotion that started to come out from the idea of like living in these really contained spaces in this really private, contained way, but then just bursting out in a way that's so much bigger than you're supposed to be in here. I mean, navigating that and like how to make that happen was really like, I mean, a testament to so many of the people like Elizabeth and like the team here at the library that just, you know, kept saying yes to this crazy idea. I mean, I don't know that we have any secret about how to navigate it. I think we try to be really polite people, even though I think we're doing something really subversive, actually. And I think we don't seem like subversive people in a lot of ways. And I think, in all honesty, because like we make work that I think is really joyful. And I think sometimes joyful work doesn't seem important, or it doesn't seem hard, or it doesn't seem like it has weight. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a very hard time, and I think a lot of people are making work that is very dark, and we just don't really know how to do that. I mean, to be in all honesty, like I think we are people that just look for some way forward and look for some empathy and look for some lightness, and that's just sort of our personalities, I think. But yeah, I think there is a subversion in that, and it doesn't feel that way at first. And then when we start showing up and dancing, it obviously does make people a little bit nervous. But the library staff has really been wonderfully embracing this in so many ways. Yeah.
As we're talking about the dance actually taking place here, I think it's a great time to call up our dancers.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
and
please.
include them in the conversation.
So
So whoever is here
we
and
would
able
love to invite
participate.
some of the dancers up. Flannery Gregg and Andy Chapman and Kim Ema. Could you guys come up and join us on stage for a little bit? And then we also have photos that I feel like I should show. And I guess I didn't show this because this is so awkward to show a photo of myself. But this is the beginning of the show. And so if you don't know the piece, we take about 20 audience members on headphones on a tour of the library, essentially under the framework of the idea that we are librarians and we're bringing materials from the collection to these patrons who are all around the library, and the patrons are performers. And when we go into the rooms, you sort of hear their stories and like hear about the piece that they've requested. And then there's this amazing group of dancers who we call the Pages, and they're all wearing these black ties and white button-down shirts, and they're kind of this like Greek chorus of huge emotion. And I feel like anybody who has seen the show that has an emotional reaction has it because of the movement. Like really, like the stories are important and set you up to understand what's happening, but really it's like the burst of movement that the dancers are all providing in this space is really unlike anything I think that's happened in here. Anyway, this is Flannery Gregg.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
This is Kim Ema.
Hi.
And Andy Chapman.
Hello.
And they're in the performance with us.
And thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Can you share with us a little bit about your relationship with the company, how long you've been working with Monica and Robbie, and kind of how you came to be part of Lunch Dances?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I met Monica a long time. I feel like Monica creates such strong, committed relationships with everyone she meets. And as soon as I met her, I was like, I must figure out how to be next to you and dance with you as much as possible. But I met her at the American Dance Festival a long time ago as a student. And then I started working with her as an assistant on musicals. And we made choreography for a movie together. And then I became her rehearsal director, which was just amazing. And I get to kind of dive into these dance worlds with her. And then we combine with Robbie to kind of see what the moment needs together. And I've been working with her for like 6 years.
I love this company so much. And I saw their show, Many Happy Returns, last year 4 times, and anytime I saw it was playing, I would tell my friends, and you got to come. I brought my father, I brought friends, and I was just a big fan, and knew them. We had ways we knew each other, but I this is my first time working with them. But when I got the invitation, without knowing a thing, I said yes so quickly. And it's been such a gift, and I said that I felt like a very unexpected gift, but if I had known I could ask for it, it would have been the gift I would have asked for.
I met Monica my freshman year of college. She was doing a residency at Florida State University, and she had posted a sign-up form for volunteers to help her work through some ideas. And I had never worked with a New York City choreographer before, so I put my name on the list and worked with her a couple of days in the basement at FSU.
Wait,
And-
isn't that story that there was actually, you were the only person who put your name on the list? I thought I've heard.
Well, it was my idea, and so it was me, my friend Maggie, and Amanda McPeak, and I think our friend Kit was there.
Okay.
So, but I was
It was
like,
your
come on,
idea.
guys, we're
Okay.
freshmen, we're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, literally half my life later, still, the way Monica likes to develop these relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally and professionally.
Yeah.
I've been able to
Yeah.
be in touch with her and work with her, and I met Robbie, and
Yeah.
now we've done a couple shows together.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
I'd love to. So the way that Lunch Dances works, as you were showing us, we take this tour through the library and we visit a lot of different scenes, and so it's composed of these vignettes, and we get these really personal stories. So I'm wondering if we could kind of zoom in on one of them and kind of look at how it came together conceptually in terms of your writing process, in terms of the choreography, how the dancers came into it and helped kind of create it. And so maybe we'll do Kim's scene. You're Nell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in the map
Kim's
room.
Patsy.
Oh, Patsy.
Kim's Patsy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So take us through that. Like, bring us behind the scenes and how that was built and put together.
Yeah. So, a lot of times Monica and I are working and we're really just sort of going down our separate paths, and we talk a lot, and we have but we're really generating material on our own. And Monica had made this dance that I just really loved so much, and I thought it was the strangest dance because it included this weird leg swinging thing that is the dance that is in the story to this Bee Gees song, "If I Can't Have You," and I. In my sort of Frank O'Hara research period, learned about a woman named Patsy Southgate. And Patsy Southgate was a sort of like socialite, translator, writer, but mostly like a socialite, and people called her the Grace Kelly of the Southamptons. And the sort of New York poetry scene would all hang out at her place in the Hamptons over the summer. And she was this like incredible, beautiful, really dynamic, charismatic person, and it just felt like whenever she wanted something, everybody made it happen. And she was just the center of a social scene in a lot of ways. So I read her obituary here at the library and just imagined like I didn't realize she had been married 2 or 3 times before that, and before she passed away, and had just a lot of people that had left her life before she passed away. And I was just imagining like her in a lot of ways, and this way that I'm sure as these people died from her life, that she probably drove everybody in her life nuts, like because she seemed to really just like kind of thrive off of the love and attention of someone in a lot of ways. And anyway, so I was trying to imagine her at the library and what she would be doing. And this idea that I came up with is that she's looking for a tattoo. And it's a tattoo to memorialize this person in her life that just passed away. And the story sort of begins with me saying, like, Patsy's here. She is here because she's doing some research because her husband recently died. Her husband, who's actually her wife named Joe, but when she's mad at her, she calls her my husband instead. Which I think is funny, but maybe nobody else does. It's a joke against husbands, okay? But so we come across Kim in the Center for Research, and she has this folder from the picture collection. And the story is that she's essentially been coming to the picture collection for 3 years, looking for the perfect image that she could get tattooed that would remind her of her wife, Joe. And she's sort of just been driving everybody nuts. And she looks for photos of oranges because Joe could pick out the best oranges and always open them for her. And then she decides oranges are really boring and she might as well get an aspirin bottle tattooed on her arm because Joe also always opened those for her. And it just goes through all these lists of images. And these are images that I was finding in the picture collection, because I don't know if anybody has been to the picture collection, but the picture collection is probably the greatest underground club in New York City. Like, it is just folders upon folders upon folders of images organized by these categories and ideas by this team of like total geniuses that I think they just sit in the back of the picture collection with like scissors and cut things out of magazines all day and put them in folders. And it's like this amazing view into this hive mind. And I totally fell in love with it and just started finding all these images. And imagining this woman who Kim is playing just going kind of nuts at the library looking for the perfect image to get tattooed on her arm. And what ends up happening is something that actually happened to me at the library, which is that I was researching a bunch of Frank O'Hara stuff and kind of running through all the material that they had. And then one day I came in for my research appointment and the librarian brought me a different folder, something that I hadn't asked for, which was these letters from Kenneth Koch. And just said, you might also be interested in this. And that just, the fact that a librarian kind of saw where I was going before I was going there totally changed my idea of what a research librarian can really do. And so that happens in the story, that this librarian brings Patsy a folder that she hasn't requested. And in the story, it's Nabokov's drawings of butterflies. And that somehow the librarian knows that Joe, her partner, loved Nabokov, and so she finds this image and she decides, I can move on. I can get this tattoo and I can move forward. And then what happens is this Bee Gees song comes on. And because of who we are, all of that emotion kicks into this dance that is really way, way too much energy and way too much spirit for that small room with these beautiful oak tables that we are in. And maybe you can all talk about sort of dancing in that moment much more.
I can talk about dancing. We're also very much trying not to cry while dancing this very virtuosic dance in a circle around the table, and Patsy and her photos after hearing this story, while hearing this story. And what can I say about it? It's big and fast and complicated, and so it feels like it supports the story of Patsy's grief, which can feel big and fast and complicated. And it might go on too long, or it might repeat a lot in different ways, and it can happen anywhere. The waves of grief, just like the waves of our moves around. And as you can hear in my shaky voice, we learned the dance without hearing Robbie's voice. And then all of a sudden, I mean, just to talk about process, we learned the choreography. And
Just
then
the Bee Gees song.
to just the
Yeah.
Bee Gees song. And then all of a sudden, Monica says to us, okay, now it's time to do it with the script, with Robbie's voiceover. He was not in the rehearsal room at the time. And so we're all like, oh, great, yeah, Bee Gees song, okay, yeah, cool. Robbie's script comes to life around us, and it is almost like immediate emotion and this almost unsurmountable impossibility to dance while feeling. And it took, I don't know how many rehearsals for me personally to be able to dance without crying, but it took a lot. And in that way, the process and now performance of this piece goes so hand in hand with what the character Patsy is going through that it just becomes the most perfect pairing of art forms and time, and dancing it is wonderful. And I think that's all, yeah, that's what I can say.
And you're right. I mean, it's a very repetitive dance, and it's a really big dance. And you sort of think of like, if I'm such a dummy about movement. Like, if I was going to make a grief dance, it wouldn't look anything like this. Like, it has so much energy and so much sort of force to sort of say, like, I'm going to carry forward. And that song, I don't know if you know the song, but it's like, weirdly, it's like the Bee Gees did a very good job of like making really sad songs in a really positive way. And I think the dance does that too. Yeah. And Kim is in this sort of like amazing silent movie acting job, which all of the sort of characters who are in the show are Birgit Hupvik, who's another performer with us. She's in the back, and she plays Nell, another character. But it is this amazingly hard acting job because the audience is all on headphones, and you're watching somebody like Birgit or you're watching Kim, and it's like watching a silent movie. You can't hear them at all. You're just seeing them move, and I'm telling you a story about what they're going through. And it feels like such a personal exchange that like I have with Birgit or I have with Kim of narrating an experience they're embodying. And that's a really weird thing I think that happens in our work a lot. We're constantly separating out like a voice and a body. And I think to both Monica and I, we both feel like that's actually kind of true to our lived experiences, that like you feel like there is one way of thinking and there is a different way of moving through the world, and they're not often aligned. And they can come together, but often they're like, this is my thought process and this is my conscious and this is my body, and they're not always doing the same thing.
We have a bunch of questions from the audience, so I'm going to weave that into our conversation here.
Yeah.
And so 2 questions somewhat related. Just in general, what the biggest obstacle was, and then somebody else who asked the biggest challenge developing choreography in the library space. So we were just talking about Patsy's scene, which is very contained. It's not a public room, and so it's the participants of lunch dances getting to kind of watch it, kind of in the most like traditionally proscenium like vantage point. But that is not the case with a lot of the other performances. And so when you do get into a big public space and there are people who are literally there on their laptops doing their research with their books, and all of a sudden you start dancing, what are the challenges? What are the obstacles in working in those environments? And maybe what are some of the fun stories and observations that you all have had during those times?
Yeah, I mean, when the headphones go on, you do get this kind of like armor, like this kind of superhero armor, just a little bit. You're still aware of everyone, but I do think you also are having like a really like solo experience yourself as a performer inside of it. Like I can clock people dancing with me, and we're all usually on the same foot, which is amazing. But I feel like for the most part, the music does kind of turn me a little bit into like a slightly bigger version of myself, which I think the people working and passing by can sense a little bit. We also try to blend in. We also try to be pages and kind of, be making eye contact with the public and like acknowledging that they're here and we're here. And yes, we are working here, but we're gonna start dancing here.
To be fair, there are placards like on the tables that are saying like a performance will take here between these times, and so people are forewarned to a degree that
Yeah. This is a picture of Chelsea and Madison, and they're the first characters we actually meet, and they're in the periodical room. And this hilarious thing happens in the periodical room, and I guess this is probably true of the library, but there are regulars who just come to the periodical room and they read their stack of newspapers at the same time every single day. And maybe some of you were them, and I didn't know that you existed, and now I do. But there's one person in particular who comes every single day, and he does not appear to be somebody that is normally in our audience. That's a loaded statement, but just to say that the first day that we went in, I mean, he has a long beard, he wears a hat, he has a big stack of papers and a pencil, and he looks like he's there to do some serious newspaper reading. And every day we go in, and he puts his newspaper down, and he just watches us for 6 minutes. And I just think, like, I don't know if he knows that I'm telling a story about the first photo of an openly queer woman on the cover of anything published in the United States in 1964. He has no idea that that's what I'm talking about, and he's watching it anyway because there's this like dance piece that's taking over the room. And honestly, for the most part, like I would say 90% of the people we encounter are really interested and really kind of awakened by what we're doing. There's a good percentage of people who also just like don't even notice because it's New York City, and that's just what it is to live in New York. You're just another dance piece is happening. Great.
Can we say what happened in the periodical room with our regular?
Oh my gosh.
The journey, the relationship we built with this person.
Because yes, he seems maybe a little like he is okay with being alone in there every day reading his newspaper. And then 2 days ago, we walked in and he was reading a newspaper that had a story about our show with a photo of our show. And as we're walking in, we like looked and it was our article, and and I looked up and he just looked up and went,
When at first he was kind of like, what are you doing here? Like for shows number one,
Oh,
two,
yeah.
3. But then he got really used to us, and now we're waving. Now we're just
we waved today.
And as a participant, like watching the show as an audience member, that is actually part of the pleasure, is watching everybody else respond to you all. That becomes part of the work. And the people who look up, who do engage, but even more so the people who just insist on their focus. But that becomes like part of the conversation of the larger work, which is one of the really special things of doing it here.
And really such a amazing fun thing to do, to just feel like we're just creating our own interior fictional world that exists within this world. I mean, that feels like such a gift for all of us. It's such a joy to perform, and I think it's over on Saturday, which is crazy, and we're all, I think, just starting to realize how sad we're going to be about that. I think because it is this really personal, strange thing to perform every time.
We have another question about how Frank O'Hara led you to some of the other stories in the piece. So the Pullman Porters, the Us Weekly, all the other little stories behind the vignettes.
Us Weekly's easy. Frank O'Hara would have loved Us Weekly stars. They're just like us. His poems are basically versions of stars. They're just like us. I mean, he name drops celebrities, and he's fascinated by what they're doing. He has a great poem called Lana Turner Collapsed, about this headline that she had fallen. And yeah, I mean, this piece that is on the screen right now, that's a sort of fictionalized version of Kenneth Koch, and he's coming to the library to try to smoke, but he's kind of such a good boy that he just fake smokes with a pencil. And that sort of led to me discovering that the library actually has an amazing collection of matchbooks from delis and restaurants. They're in the Derot Jewish Division, and it's, these characters sort of led to some of the objects. The Pullman Porter story was one. I don't know if there's a picture of that on here, but the Pullman Porter story is one that really surprised me so much, and I think was one of the hardest pieces to make for the performance. He has an amazing poem called The Day Lady Died, and it's about Billie Holiday. It's in the collection Lunch Poems, and it's about him just sort of wandering around a train station, and he's trying to buy gifts for his friends. Patsy Southgate is one of them, and he thinks about getting her a book, and then he thinks about getting Joe Lesueur, another friend of his, a collection of plays by Jean Genet, and he eventually sees a newspaper headline that Billie Holiday died. And the last line of the poem is him sort of mourning for Mal Waldron. And I didn't know who Mal Waldron was at all when I read the poem, and then I realized I could research him. And Mal Waldron was often played piano for Billie Holiday and was a composer in his own right. And when I realized that Frank had ended the poem with him, I just couldn't let go of that. And I just started to wonder more about him, and learned that his father worked on the trains. And he was not a porter, I don't think. I think he was an engineer, actually, but he worked on the trains. And that just sort of led me to just researching it led me to learn what a Pullman Porter was, and then I was researching that at the library and learned that the library owns this uniform, a Pullman Porter uniform, from the 1960s, from Frank O'Hara's time. So that's where that object really came from, and it is this thing that I didn't expect to happen, and it doesn't happen in a lot of our work, where I really accidentally became a researcher. And this didn't start with, let me write a piece about Pullman Porters. I had no idea what Pullman Porters were until we made this. And one thing sort of led me to another, the way I think research really does. So that's where that idea came from.
I have a question about whether you would take this to other libraries. I know with the museum workout, you took that to other museums, and so it becomes a bit of a template, but you have to adapt it and you respond to the art that's in the place that you're going. And so, is there a version of Lunch Dances that would be inspired by the collections of other libraries that this could tour in this similar way? Is that an aspiration? Is that too much to even think about right now?
This is really where I miss Monica in the conversation the most, because she would say yes and I would say no at the same exact time. Yes, no, for sure. Yes. I don't know. It feels totally impossible to me, and she would definitely feel like we will and we shall and we are already, in fact, but we're not. No, I mean, it feels really hard to understand how to do that, but yeah, I mean, that we're a performing company, and that's sort of what we do. I think we both feel that it is our job as a performing company to try to get ourselves to say yes to whatever opportunity comes up. And I think if somebody had the idea of bringing this to their library, I mean, I don't think we would ever go knock on the door of the Beneke and say, like, do you want a dance piece? But, just like we didn't knock on the door here, really this came from the library. So, yeah, we'd be open to it for sure. Yeah.
We only have a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear from everybody before we close just about a memorable moment or anything that you want to share about the experience so far, whether in the creation of it or something that's happened during a performance that has been particularly impactful.
Each day, each performance, I'm so incredibly moved by everyone. Like the people who are here and have never been in the building before and are regular, and how many people are walking through the front doors when the pages are starting to dance. And just I'm very moved and feel very grateful for being in this building, in this piece. And it's always different. And I also love that a lot of people who've come to see it have told me that I can see that they have a new relationship to the library, that there's this sense of like, it is different now. It is somehow heightened or awakened. And in those moments, I'm also moved.
I have two little things. One is a bigger thing being here before the library was open. When we got to rehearse, when it was just us, was so magical and exclusive, and like two beautiful things I love about New York City. And great, so beyond grateful and appreciative for the whole process, and then the idea of this authority that we must look like we have when we're in costume, that people will come up and ask us questions. And I think by far my favorite question so far is, where is the library part? And I think my default answer is always like the third floor. And so I think that's it's just this. And but I think that just says a lot about who comes here and why we're doing this, and it's those little human moments that I just love.
I think we're 20 shows in, and it is always different every time. But I do really appreciate, I feel like, how familiar I feel in the space. I'm waving at the security team, and I'm getting to know the people that work in the rooms, and the same patrons that come that wave at me and like wink at me, knowing what's going to happen. And it just feels like a really great day at work. And it feels like I'm a real New Yorker also, which really is just a really great feeling. And to be able to burst into some dancing like that suddenly, yep, that too, it's just a total pleasure. It's just I really feel like we're just running the gamut of emotions and the possibilities of how you can feel in this space, which includes frustrated exhaustion, like you're seeing here. But yeah. Oh, there's Andy.
We haven't seen these photos, by the way. Like
Oh, you
these
haven't
are-
seen them? I'm
No, we
sorry.
haven't seen any of
Yeah.
these.
Yeah. Oh wow. Can you show it? I think that's all of them. I think, right? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But that's a good one of you, Angie. I love that one.
Oh
of you.
yeah.
Rob, any final thoughts about this? What this experience has been for you, for the company, and kind of like a takeaway that you're going to bring with you, kind of in your future, worth something that that's just really going to stick with you.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I think what the thing that both Monica and I have been talking about so much has unfurled over the last couple of weeks is just how surprised we are by the reaction to it. And I think I that is probably what I will think about the most, is the number of people that have told us things like, I really needed this. And I'm like, what do you mean? You needed a dance show in the library? Like, it doesn't seem real to me. And I'm understanding it, but it is, we're such a strange, I think performing is such a strange art, because you're really doing something, and it's a really physical, constant job, and it's really task oriented. And I'm really excited to be able to reflect on the experiences that people have shared with me. Wonderfully, so many of the writers in residence here have come, and because of their title have written the greatest emails to us and have told us so much of why they're coming and what they thought they were going to see and what they saw instead. And I'm really treasuring the interaction with them so much, and they're helping me see so much of the piece in a different way. So yeah, I'm really excited I'm not looking forward to it ending, but I'm really excited to be able to just reflect on a lot of the things people have shared from it, and feel like I think Monica and I can both be really self-effacing people. We were laughing the other day because she and I realized that in her high school's production of Grease in the 1970s in California, she was Cha-Cha, and in my high school production of Grease in the hers was in the 80s, not the 70s, and then mine was in the 90s in New Jersey, and I was Eugene. I don't know if you know Grease, but you don't want to be Eugene. And you don't want to be Cha-Cha, really? Like, that's not the part you go in and audition for. And that is like who we are, is Eugene and Cha-Cha. And the fact that that seems to be connecting with people right now in this environment means a lot to us. And I think it really encourages us to keep finding ways to make work that is humorous and that lets people see themselves, and to let people connect and have empathy towards strangers, which I think is so much of what this piece is about.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, there are 4 performances left,
Yeah.
11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. They are completely filled. All the performances, I think, filled within like hours of happening, minutes, which is generally the case with any of Monica and Robbie's shows. And there was a question actually about how you advertise them, and you can sign up on their website and be on the email list. And also you can catch them this summer in Williamstown. They're going to be at the Williamstown Theater Festival. They're going to be performing Many Happy Returns, which is a wonderful, wonderful work. So another opportunity if you can get up to Massachusetts for that. Thank you all so much for
Thank you.
joining us today for this conversation. Thank you to the library for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian.
And thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much. If you had a question and we didn't get to it, we're around if you want to say hi. Thanks.